place that set the standard for Vegas fitness. Then came Northwest, near Summerlin, sharing the Fit Club gym culture and vibes across Las Vegas. And the crown jewel, Henderson, a cutting-edge space designed for bodybuilders, competitors, and anyone chasing their best self. Fit Club Las Vegas, now with 3 locations.
Dom SuperSliced. It's what it. You know what's funny? I have there's these one name people in the industry, right? But what I always wanted to know was why they chose to call you SuperSliced, Dom. Because people never talk about your last name, which is
Mutascio. Yeah, Italian last.
You didn't even know his last name, did you?
No, I just looked. His last name is SuperSliced.
Sometimes it's kind of annoying because I've walked into even like a professional business meeting to actually look at like a commercial piece of like property. I'm meeting with a doctor and this guy's like, "They're sliced," and I'm like, "Why are you saying this?" And the guy
who gave you the name?
I got it honestly from like, you remember when you would do a national show and they would have the live play-by-play going on? I would walk out and I think Ron Harris, whatever, is like, "Man, this guy is super sliced." And somehow that just ended up sticking to me. I was known to bring like next level conditioning. And then it just kind of grabbed and stuck with me. I even tried getting rid of it. I changed everything. And there were so many people who were like, why'd you change that? And I could not believe how many people were made a big deal about.
Yes, you don't understand. People like, "I'm working with Dom SuperSliced," and I'm like, I knew you obviously, but I'm always like,
just on stage fat and they'll stop calling you SuperSliced.
Yeah, and it just like kind of like stuck with me the whole time. So I'm like, I guess I really can't.
Not such a bad name though.
No, it's not. You know, it's better than me, Dom the Donut Boy. Yeah. You know what I mean? That would be good. But no. Ever since then, that's when SuperSliced was born years ago when I first started competing.
Well, now we know. I always wondered, but I just didn't bring it up.
Yeah. No, that's how it all like started in every show. I came from a wrestling background in high school, and I originally went to college for wrestling. So when I was wrestling, I would be cutting like crazy amounts of weight. So when I went to college, to be able to crack the lineup at a Division I school, like you're only an asset to the team at the weight that they need you at, which was 133. And I'd be cutting from like 160. So after a while, like my first year, I wasn't even going to class. I was like failing out of school. My parents came down, they seen me. They're like, "Your clothes are hanging off of you." And during that time, there was 2 brothers, I believe, in Michigan State that ended up dying. They found their bodies in a sauna, and they were doing the same things that I was. Wasn't eating or drinking fluids for like 36 hours, going into a sauna with a rubber suit on one of the assault bikes, and doing all these crazy extremes to make weight. And I just couldn't believe, like, I'm going to this great school and my wrestling coach is still telling me, like, you know, don't drink water for 2 days. Like, I couldn't believe that we didn't have a registered dietitian or someone there giving us proper guidance. So from there, I decided to switch schools. I changed my major, and then I ended up first going to a SUNY school upstate, where I went to school for kinesiology and then eventually transferred into dietetics because I wanted to get into the space of educating people and not make the same mistakes that I did when I was competing in wrestling. And then I ended up getting into bodybuilding, but that wrestling mentality was still kind of engraved into me. So when I was in bodybuilding, I'm like, man, yeah, I should probably be a light heavyweight, but I could get down to a lightweight. So I would still be going in with that mindset, which it would result in an extremely conditioned physique, but it was taking away other aspects of my physique, which are important in bodybuilding, you know, taking away, you know, fullness. And I was even losing muscle tissue to get down to a weight class. But that's kind of like how that whole everything like transpired from, if you have someone that usually wrestled at a high level, I even know when I do a consultation with someone, I ask them, like, did you play sports when you were younger? Are you from a military background? I know if they are from that background, chances are I can push that individual a little bit harder than your average person.
Coachable, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So Jerry Scalise taught
Absolutely.
teach you?
So
what gym were you training at in New York?
Deer Park Gold's Gym.
Okay.
And then eventually, because I lived on way out east in Long Island. So Deer Park was a little closer. And then once I got more engraved in the bodybuilding, then I started going out to Bev's. But no, Jerry was the first one that got me into bodybuilding. He knew me from when I was a wrestler, and he was like, man, like you don't have a bad physique. You should start think about competing. And then him and I linked up. We started training. We were just training in a basement with just free weights. And then, one thing led to another, but he is the one that opened me up into this industry.
A lot of people have mentioned his name. I remember starting as a teenager.
Yeah.
And I was on a show called American Muscle Magazine. I remember a lot of the guys coming up around that time were talking about being mentored by him.
Yeah.
And a lot of old school. And I think that's we'll talk a little bit about your philosophies on a lot of the diet advice these days. And I know a lot of guys you have come to you to fix mistakes.
Yeah.
But the industry's changed so much, man. Like from the time I started, I worked with Aceto since I was 18. And I had the chance to work with Hani at some point too. But my whole thing, and we talk about this a lot, super old school approach.
But the old school approach was effective. And even when I first got into bodybuilding, at that point I was still in college, but I was going to school to be a dietitian. I asked Jerry, like, what was your diet? And because he never really spoke about it. I'm like, what did you eat? And he's like, well, we would train and we would go to Wendy's and get 2 baked potatoes after. And I was like, you didn't have a set diet like that? And he's like, yeah. So in his day, I'm sure you heard of him, Bob Grutzkin.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So that's where
who coached Aceto.
Exactly. So all of them were under that same type of umbrella. So I got to see a lot of what he did. Another friend of mine, I don't know if you know him, Steve Kornfeld, he used to be with Metrics. He was friends with Jerry. He also was friends with Bob, and he shared with me a bunch of notes of all the shows that they were doing, exactly what he was doing. And some of it I was like, wow, this is extreme. But again, the old school methodology, a lot of it worked because people didn't try to reinvent the wheel. And back then too, there were the food quality was also has been on a steady decline over the last 20 to 30 years. So, when Arnold first started competing, you didn't have protein powder. Now you have all these ultra processed foods from different types of cream of rice, this type of food, this type of protein bar. Well, when you read the back of it, and there's all these additives in it, and that's what's causing a lot of the GI issues. There's a whole cascade of different things, but that's where a lot of it starts from. In this newer generation, they ultimately are looking for shortcuts to make things easier. Ultimately,
I think everyone's a pussy. In a sense, because we didn't have this. So, but you just explained something that he says, I don't know necessarily. Listen, I used to buy a whole cow at a time. Chicken. I lived in Massachusetts. I had a local butcher. We all know the quality at the grocery store is sometimes the meats you buy, all that, right?
Yeah.
It can be very deceiving. Do you really think the food, do you think it's because people have adapted to the easiest way, like you just said, to get in their even different term, macros, calories, protein, carbs, fats? Do you think it's a shortcut approach that the new generation has taken? Or do you think that if they simplified it, where I didn't even use condiments back and I wasn't even allowed ketchup or anything on my food. No, you watch the Ronnie Coleman videos with the barbecue sauce. That wasn't allowed ever. And we couldn't have anything like that. But Chris Aceto was always someone that said, okay, carbs are carbs, protein or protein is he was a low fat guy, right? Which now I feel today, like people taking more fats than when I did it, right? I used to eat like low fat protein. I wouldn't even eat a lot of red meat when I was dieting for a show. I'd stick to like white fish, turkey over chicken, honestly, because turkey was leaner. Egg whites. But I didn't have any of this, oh, well, I'm allergic to dairy or allergic to gluten, or is it really that bad in today's world of... All right, take two. Hey guys, if you have not heard, I've launched my own TRT clinic. TRT Kingdom is now live. And if you'd like to schedule on consult or get more information, make sure you guys go over, check it out, and let us see how we can help with your health needs.
Click the link below.
Shit.
Say click the link below.
Okay. Click the link below.
So, well, it's two things. You are definitely right where the newer generation, they are like, they are a little bit of pussies because they're looking for easier like shortcuts, and social media has been both good and horrible at the same time. And when I say like horrible, that people will go ahead and let's say they'll go into the gym and they might not want to do deadlifts or squats. Those are hard. They'll go ahead and try to find some bullshit clinical study that was done on somebody that just started working out, and then they'll think, oh, I could get away with doing this. And the same thing goes for like the dietary aspects. I'll tell you right now, if I was to write a diet and I did it all with like all animal protein, whole foods, people would be complaining. A lot of people would be complaining about that. So people have adapted into this newer like generation where, you know, they are like the type of, back in your day, you probably didn't hear people talking about macros, this and that. You probably didn't hear that too much, where it was more about you're eating to fuel your body.
Yeah. Like I literally, like, you know, the simplified diets. I mean, Chris would write me and it would be like 50p protein.
Yep.
50C. 50 carbs. So that would be like okay. And then he didn't even put a fat content because he knew, okay, he's eating low fat protein sources. It's just natural fats from the,
you're getting
protein
some,
whatever, right?
The protein. Yeah.
But I didn't use any supplementation of that. I mean, we can go into all, like, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the stuff that I did, it blows their people's minds, like what I actually, as little as I did, but I did keep it as simplified as possible, even off season versus pre-contest. So my diet never shifted much. It was just cutting a little bit. Like I would actually starve a little bit, where I feel like today the guys, and I feel like even at the end of my career, it became a challenge to eat as much food because they judge us on being bigger.
Yeah.
And I think now people look at bodybuilding today and they get a lot of criticism of the guys, but I think the guys are great because the judges are asking them to be larger, fuller.
Yeah. That's
the difference now. And it's not like, because I don't think necessarily, and you can kind of back me up a little bit on this and tell me yes or no. Do you feel like the food from this time you started, it's a lot more feeding to make the physique a lot bigger for a lot of the guys? Like when you're working with a Sergio or Regan, or, I mean, the list goes on and on. The amount of food is crazy to feed those bodies.
So I think, of course, just the overall size of the individual to fill out that much muscle glycogen, of course, that's taken into account. But I think that it boils down really to the individual, that everyone from a metabolic standpoint is totally different. Like I've had a guy that was a men's physique, like Olympian, and to get him, like to have him nailed, like glycogen stores fully loaded, have him like dry on show day, he needed to
1,000
eat
carbs a day.
Yeah. Like close to that much food. He was a really rare case. I'd never really seen someone that was only 175 pounds on stage that needed to consume, that much, opposed to, someone else that's a bigger individual, like my client, like Vincenzo Mazzone. He's an old, like started with me when he was like 16. The amount of food that would say like that he would need would be almost similar to this men's physique individual, that a lot of it is based upon like genetics and where they are from, an overall metabolic standpoint. I think another important thing to keep in mind, and Regan can tell you a little bit about this, that what you're doing in the prep is going to dictate really how much you're going to need. And what I mean by that is if you have a bodybuilder, and obviously taking into account that they're training hard, they're doing everything they need to in the gym. if you run them on just the same diet every day, I'm talking about you're eating the same food, workout, non-workout day. After a while, your body is going to adapt to that because our bodies, they're not machines. They're like ecosystems. So regardless of what it is that you're eating. So if you have a open bodybuilder and he's eating, say 350 grams of carbs for 10 weeks, same thing. When you go ahead and you then go into the peak week, it's going to take you a lot more to get that person's body back, where I'm a big advocate of rotating in higher days periodically. When you go into peak week, a thing I do with 95% of all people, either at the 8 or 9 day out, like marker, I'll reload them hard that day, like a reload. So you're not going into peak week already ran to the ground.
Yeah. It's funny because Aceto would spill me.
Yeah.
He would just, okay, we're going to load you and spill you just to see
how much it requires.
Just to see, and just so I have the reserve. So when we do pull back a little bit to try to, okay, let's kind of deplete a little bit. Let's just back down. My back down was 400 carbs.
Yeah.
It was a low day for me.
But someone that's as big as you, yeah.
Because you want to see, okay, how much does it take to load it? How before we spill over. And I'll be honest, bro, I've walked into shows like not even depleting anything because it's just like, okay, better every day. It's a visual thing. And that's why I feel like now as a coach, like it used to be like weekly check-ins for a lot of people, but as you get closer and you're doing a show, you need to it's like almost a couple of times a day. Or
absolutely. And that's what you and I were talking about this like before we started. Yeah. A big part of coaching at this level is, I'd say more than 60% of it is monitoring that person's body like very closely. And a mistake that a lot of top coaches make, and I never wanted to fall into this. So I have like a rule of thumb that I don't let my certain amount of clients anything more than like 100, because at that point, even at around 100, you're still working 7 days a week, around the clock. But there are some top coaches that are pushing 300 like athletes. So going in again, and if you have 300 athletes, you can be the smartest, best coach in the world. You're not going to be able to do what you need to get that person at their best. And the way that I do it, when someone's a week out, they're sending check-ins every single day, morning, night, the last 3 days, especially the last 2 days, their diet is done based on per meal. Eat this meal, send an update an hour later, eat this meal. And that's how it has to be done. Or you're throwing blindfolded darts.
And you like the variety of foods too, right? Switching between carb sources, maybe some proteins.
I'm a big...
what do you think, if you could name the top 3 carb sources, what would you say is probably on the average of what you usually...
To fill out an open guy?
No, just in general with the diet. Is it oatmeal? Is it sweet potatoes? Is it red potatoes? Is it white potatoes? Is it pasta? Is it...
I do a combination of both high and low glycemic index carb sources, but also fruit. I don't know, in your day, did you eat fruit?
Yeah, I wasn't afraid of it at all.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about fructose, but when your body's going that fast,
yeah,
you can eat fucking burgers and fries and whatever, and God knows what it can do to your body, right?
Yeah. So when you're in true stage condition, and I mean, Chris Aceto told me this, that first national show I did, he looked at me, he said, listen, when you're in shape like that, food will only help you. And that's true.
And anything at that point.
Exactly. So I use a variety. I obviously use fruit because fruit loads liver glycogen. And for you to sufficient.
So what fruits?
I'll use pineapple because pineapple also, it's going to help your digestive tract.
Of course, yeah.
Bananas are great. Sometimes if people are having GI distress, Regan had food poisoning in Mexico from the water, even though I told him not to go near it.
Don't brush your teeth with the water. Yeah, bottled water.
Yeah, but no, I had him taking in papaya and jasmine rice, sweet potatoes. Sometimes filling people out, pasta. Actually, people underestimate pasta.
Lee Haney was a big pasta.
I think it works phenomenal, and it doesn't. If you had 100 grams of carbs in pasta, say 100 grams of carbs in rice, the pasta is easier to get down. Am I right?
Yeah. 4 ounces of pasta is 80. I mean, that's what was my common meal was 4 ounces of pasta, and I can eat that okay, done.
Yeah. 200 grams of carbs is like that. But if you eat 200 grams of carbs of oatmeal, you'd be out here. But you want to have a variety of foods. And I do know 1 or 2 coaches that I feel Their mistake is that they just literally just only use cream of rice, cream of rice, cream of rice, where you need to have some food variety.
There's some density too. Yeah. You need
Absolutely. And fats play an important role too, because the last, like, especially I'm talking about when you're peaking for a show, you could eat 1,500 grams of carbs. And I'm sure you've seen times where you're like, man, I'm just not filling out because your body's just spinning through them, where fats, one, you're going to load intracellular triglycerides. And then when you add fats to, say, a high GI index carb like jasmine rice, cream of rice, it's going to slow the glycemic index down to help the carbs stick. So I use a huge variety. And there are some people too that actually do need some dense food to get the job done, where you could eat as much clean food. But some people, especially like if it's a Friday night, let's say it's a Saturday morning prejudging. If it's Friday night and the water is controlled, like restricted, dude, you could go to a Chinese food buffet. If you're not drinking water, you're not going to spill over if the water is controlled. And then typically the morning of the show, if someone does need to fill out a little bit, if you did what you needed to the 3 days prior, then the only thing that will like change your physique quickly is sodium and water. You would pulse a little bit of sodium and water, and then boom, that will bring you typically right back to life.
I was super, super restrictive on my water. I mean, he watched me. Mm-hmm. He watched me a couple of times.
But how
walk the line?
But how far out from the show? You're talking 2 days or one?
3 days sometimes.
Where you weren't drinking water for 3 days?
I would just sip a little bit with the meals.
Like, so you say you would be drinking under like a liter of water a day?
Yeah, I would just be sipping. Yeah.
Did you feel like it was hard to fill out?
Oh, I mean, no, because I was so full still from, I was eating a lot of food, but it was still working,
See, I was
eating white rice, so I felt like, okay, it has some, it's water to make
there
it
is
rice,
water in
right?
it to make it, yes, 100%.
But yeah, man, I had to be, even when it was funny because I worked with Chris and, I'm like, man, like I have to die to get in dry condition. And then it's funny because when I worked with Hani, it was the same thing, super depleted with water, a little diazide, just hitting it in small increments, but super restrictive. And Hani even said, like, yes, your body like is different from a lot of guys because you have to super restrict.
So
I was a huge drinker though. I was a huge drinker. Like I literally would drink a minimum of 2 gallons a day.
Yeah.
So I would taper down, but those last 48 hours at least, I was just not for sure wasn't drinking much at all.
I would have loved to see this after you got done competing. I would have loved to be like, Jay, right now, just drink 1 liter of water. And I love to see what it looked like.
For sure came in never at my best to be even, 09, I was still flat. I was still flatter, but I had to be because they were looking for the condition.
Yeah.
But I probably would have gave my body more snap if I would have hydrated a little bit just as I went on. But you're backstage, we're sitting there. What do we have? Rice cakes with peanut butter or jelly or, it used to be this whole sugar thing, right? Okay, get your body a little tick.
I stopped doing that too.
Well, because we talk about this all the time.
The shows are ran so bad.
Of course. But dude, back when it was real bodybuilding, we kind of knew, we were the first ones going on. It was Friday night. Okay, you guys are going on at 7 and we were going on at 7:00. There wasn't 12 other divisions going on in a whole hoopla of a show.
Yeah.
That's the difference between today, modern bodybuilding and what it used to be.
Yeah.
I understand a business is a business, but athletes are secondary, third, fourth now. It's about the production.
It's crazy because you put your whole life into, this one show. And as a coach, I had to change a lot of my, the way I would peak someone. I used to be someone that would do like honey, but the problem was with that, the shows are ran so bad that I'm like, it's a hit or miss. And now I have people that are bleeding on stage that are sweating. So now what I'll usually do is just a heavy blast of like sodium before, because then you don't have to worry about the insulin spike and crash as much. But that definitely is something that
I say it all the time. I think it's almost impossible for a coach to dial someone into the Olympics.
Dom, I don't know if they're run bad. It's just that there's so many classes and they're so deep. It's like the guy who do you have for men's physique? And they were like, it was Ali Bilal or something.
Yeah.
He's in the beginning or whatever. They bring him out to do and you have to go through, he has to now wait for 60 guys to get done.
It was like an hour and a half before they brought him back out.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
So how do you peak? Like, obviously it's men's physique and you can say, well, it's a men's physique guy. He's not an open guy. But
Still
do you really think, how can I say this? Do you think it's easier for Derek Lunsford or Hadi Chupin to peak and hold it than Samson or Andrew Jacked?
I'll tell you right now, it's one, because I've coached both. I've had numerous men's physique guys that were in the first call at the Olympia and also peaked open guys. It's a lot harder to peak an open guy. One thing, could you imagine if you were competing, you didn't have to show your glutes? Okay. You're only as good as your fattest muscle group. Okay. Like, especially in open bodybuilding. So for them, like the peaking, it's a totally different ball game when you're filling out a physique that's that big. If they're a little on the flat side, or it can make or break them a couple of placings. I mean, I've seen physiques change drastically in a matter of hours, especially when you're taking if someone's using a certain amount of diuretics and you're adding all these additional variables in of things, and then add into, you could be going on in this 4-hour window. So that's why, like, as a coach, you need to kind of strategize for that and be like, look, I know that this guy can win this show, let's say at 95%, a little on the flat side, but bone dry. Then what you get yourself into trouble is, I'm going to chase that 5%. And there's a lot of people that do that. But when you do that, you risk now from going to 96% to 80% chasing that last bit. So you need to kind of take that into consideration.
That's why I said, like, for the open guys, especially at the Olympia, you as a coach, you don't even know what time they're going on. It's a 3-hour window. So how can you prepare for somebody that's had to eat 6 or 7 meals throughout the day, all the nerves, and then they're going to go on sometime between 9 and 11. How do you peak somebody?
We don't just fight insurance companies, we train for it. If you want results, get a lawyer that puts in the work. 107. Do you trust a lawyer that doesn't train? 102. Or a lawyer that quits when it gets tough? Pacific West Injury Law. We're built to win.
So you obviously, you want to go with more of the safer approach. If you know you can have them at 95% for sure at that time, then you go ahead and go with that.
Hold it.
I will tell you something that was a little bit of a big adjustment with peaking someone that's your guy's size at that time, was like the amount of like fluids. So typically the day of the show, if the prejudging was anywhere, from early in the morning and 1 o'clock, the water is like completely turned off then at that point. But when someone's going on maybe at 10 o'clock at night, from there, that's when, like you can't, for most of the time, you can't just have them drink 0 water. So that's where, again, like the attention to detail, like looking at them between every single meal. I typically know going into a show to within like a 2-pound weight range of where that person is, like nailed. Even though you could have 10 different body compositions at a certain weight, I know kind of where that sweet spot is. And that's why, again, like attention to detail, like the check-ins, like between every meal. And if you're monitoring that, then you know exactly then kind of what needs to do.
So I'm going to ask you another question. Hypothetically, if your athlete was going to go on at high noon, would you push that extra 5%? Would you be able to? At high noon.
High noon?
You knew a month in advance they were going on exactly at 12 o'clock. Would it be a different approach?
Then you have, of course it would be a different approach.
Could you get them in better shape?
Absolutely. Then at that point, then you can get away with doing a slightly more aggressive water pull because you don't have to keep them as dry for that long. You know what I mean? So yeah, like that's a big advantage, of course. Like, would you say that you could come in better in the morning or at night?
Well, you wake up drier, get a couple meals, it's not like you're not, like you mentioned, 6 meals deep, in the stress of all day, these events, like we're always doing something other than just posing and sitting in the row.
Filming.
Yeah. It's like now it's a different world, but I'm saying for my era, I knew at the Arnold, like we went on at 12. Like it was 12 o'clock. They changed it to nighttime now, right?
Now, yeah.
Okay, but it used to be at 12.
That's
so we
perfect.
knew it was going on. So Arnold was a little probably easier to, and the Olympia was at 7 then, prejudging on Friday night. And then, the night thing was a little, I usually worked my training around so I would sleep later. My body would I'd try to peak it.
Yeah.
As the weeks went on closer to the show, I'd stay up and train through the night almost.
I remember watching a lot of your videos.
Because I wanted
he's
to
training late.
And I think Phil Heath did the same thing.
They'll trade it at midnight.
Because we always wanted to peak at 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whenever we had to peak, right? It was always a night show. So whether it was Friday or Saturday. But like I told you, I had to do such extreme when it came to peaking. It was trying to land that big body.
Yeah.
And I was coming down from a big body weight, like 290. And what my theories, what I was kind of taught early was, and I don't know if this is how Jerry it wasn't, we pulled the water at the end. It was about staying bigger and fuller. Like I told you, I'd work to try to, do a mock, not carb up, but just, peaking.
Yeah.
I want to call it peaking because I don't want people to get confused with carb up because, like I said, I was already depleting at 400 carbs, so it's you're already eating carbs. But that was always my question is like, the smaller guys, and how do you learn this? Why do you think your theories, I'm not going to say are better than everyone else's, but you're building a really solid name in the industry. But I want to talk a little bit after it too, once we finish the peaking stuff, is like, you're the guy, you're the fix-it guy.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. I love that, but I want to talk about that. But why do you think, why is your knowledge spot on in your opinion?
I'll tell you. So I'm a big data-driven person, right? Where there's a lot of coaches out there where they have a set protocol. And if you look at, because obviously when you're doing this for a while, you get athletes from the other top coaches.
Yes.
You see what they do. The last week, they all look very similar, like approach to what they're doing. This guy starts aldactone on this day. The diazide comes in at this day for each and every single person. So with what I do, and I know there are a handful of coaches that are probably similar to me. John Jewett's probably someone that I would imagine is similar. Maybe Tuttle. We're all like from the similar educational background. We're very similar to the detectives, right? So as the athlete is providing me certain information and biofeedback, whether that is obviously their photos, their weight fluctuations, sometimes like their blood sugar, their blood pressure. You can tell a lot from these things too.
I know, but that's way out of, I never measured this, Dom, that's what I'm asking you.
Because after a while, I'm sure when you were competing though, after a while, because you worked with Chris most of your whole career, correct? After a while, after your probably fourth or fifth show, he had a good grasp of your body, 100%. So if you were coming on, like, I'd be interested, like when you were working with Hani, did he ask you for a lot of data on what you were doing before?
Yes.
He did. Because he looked at that, and then there's probably things that he was doing that you weren't even aware of. You were giving him this data. He was pulling up your photos.
I didn't use anti-estrogens really ever until I worked with Hani.
Oh, that's a whole nother topic we can get into. It's a big problem with this day in bodybuilding, but we can go down that rabbit hole in a second. But no, so when you sent that to him, there was a point where he was sitting down and really doing a lot of brainstorming, where he was looking at each package and was thinking, okay, like this is where he could have been better based upon like what he was doing. And then when you have this data, you start identifying patterns. I'm talking about in anything. Sometimes like with even a bigger guy like you, I notice sometimes if you push the volume with the training too much, sometimes you can tell from certain things, the information they're sending you back, their weight, their photos, their look, that maybe volume training isn't good. But you're identifying these patterns. And when you identify these individual patterns, that gives you the data that you need to make the right judgment calls. And a thing that I am big on, every athlete the day after the show, after a full night of eating, hydrating, whatever, send me updates the next day. Now, how you should look if your peak is nailed of course, you're going to be fuller in like your shoulders, your chest. But if you are still like just as dry in your glutes and hamstrings, you probably could have eaten more. You missed it. So I do that a lot because then I'll be straight up with someone. Like one of my first Olympians, like 10 years ago, I had to tell her, she thought she was probably like nailed, but I was like, look, with this person, it was a female figure girl. I used aldactone with her and I didn't pull it out in time because aldactone suppresses aldosterone, the hormone that helps essentially like balance your sodium.
Sodium, yeah.
And she was still a little flat at the show. But I showed her the next day. I'm like, look, we just know this needs to get pulled a little bit earlier. But from having that data, that helps create the roadmap on what exactly needs to get done.
What do you think about that?
I think he uses a lot of approaches that guys years ago used to use, and a lot of coaches nowadays don't do these things.
Yeah.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No.
And too many people try. Like, one of the things, I've talked to Jay about and I've talked to you about, like, it seems like nowadays coaches base everything off drugs first and then training, diet, this, to where years ago it was your training, your diet, your sleep was the most important. Drugs were just an enhancer. But now it's like, so you have to build a base. And it seems like now it's just completely flipped.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's destroying the guy's health, the look, the everything.
Their gut
So
health,
talk on that.
everything. And the thing that people look past the most now is the training. That's what it is. Everyone now, you go on social media, what do you see? New peptide.
I'm running this.
This SARM, that. Everyone's constantly asking questions about that. Then I tell them it breaks down as easy as this. I said, look, if you're not putting on like the tissue that you anticipated, I want you to look back 2 years ago. Look at how you were performing in the gym, right? Were you performing better at a higher level? Were you lifting either more weight, more reps, or just being able to perform better in the gym then? Because I said, look, I don't care if you're taking an extra 2,000 milligrams of X, Y, and Z a week. If that's not happening, you're not going to improve. That they are called performance enhancing drugs because they enhance your performance. Like that's what it boils down to. But people look past the training aspects.
Well, of course, because there's a lot of natural people. I mean, the NPC has a natural division now.
Yes.
That, a lot of these guys aren't training enhanced. So when you talk about what the protocols are, the nutrition has to be very on point. If you were to write a general diet for anyone, how many meals?
Well, what I sit down, I do an assessment, right? I see number one, when people ask what's the best plan is the one that you are going to be consistent with.
What's the minimum amount of meals though to keep someone anabolic?
So there isn't necessarily a minimum.
Can they eat 3 meals a day?
I typically would say more than that. More than that. It could.
Andrew Jack told us he ate 3 meals a day when he came on the podcast.
I believe it. It's possible.
Some people genetics that work.
Any stuff that you ever read back in the day, and I could attest to that, where they say, "Oh, your body can only absorb a certain amount of protein." That's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. If you eat,
I ate 100 grams of protein for breakfast even the last couple of years, and people say how you can't assimilate that.
That's complete, utterly
different,
utterly bullshit. Unless like you were pissing it out your ass, then that's not true. It doesn't matter if you were eating this amount of food a day. It doesn't matter if you were cutting that into 7 meals a day or if it was 3 or 4 meals a day.
What do you prefer though?
I prefer typically, if it's an open guy, I usually have most of them at least at 6 or 7 meals and a post-workout shake a day. That's typically what I'll do.
That's about what you used to.
I did 6. With Hani, I did 7. So that was a difference.
Mm-hmm.
He said, probably stretch it out a little longer because he looked at the time frame you're awake. Every 2.5 hours I ate.
Yeah.
What's usually your gap in time?
That's about it, 2.5 hours. And when people ask that question, I get this question all the time. How long should I wait to eat my post-workout meal? Well, do you want to know the actual scientific answer to that question? However long it takes for your blood sugar to drop back down below 100, that's really the answer to it. Some people it might be 45 minutes. Some people it might be an hour and a half. But that's why your meals are spaced out every 2.5 hours. Because let's say if you have someone, they were eating a meal every 45 minutes, that's where you're going to run into issues where you're not going to have sufficient partitioning of the nutrients into the muscle cell, because you need to give your pancreas adequate time to produce enough insulin to shuttle the nutrients into the muscle, unless you're using
taking
insulin, which, is something that can be used very beneficial. And I'll tell you, it gets a bad rep because people don't understand it.
They say when you take insulin, you're going to become a diabetic. Biggest farce ever, right?
Are you a diabetic?
I'll tell you something. So when I graduated school, I did an internship at a bariatric center, And obviously he was working with, these are people that are really overweight, 500-600 pounds. Most of them are pre-diabetics or full-blown diabetics. Most of the time in Western medicine, they put them on like retroactive care where they'll leave them on metformin forever. They want to keep them looped in the system financially. But when I would sit down with someone and I would be like, look, like, do you want to not take medication for the rest of your life? Most of the time, like the way that I would actually like fix it would be actually using, in some cases, a long-acting insulin, because insulin doesn't work like how testosterone does, where we take testosterone, the hypothalamus and pituitary signals to stop making it on its own. Insulin doesn't work like that. When we take, like, say, a long-acting insulin like Atlantis, what you're doing is you're actually resting the pancreas, because why you have these issues is because the pancreas can't keep up with producing so much insulin because you're just constantly just eating, pick here, eat there. The pancreas can't keep up with that. So then when you use something like a long-acting insulin, you can give the pancreas a little bit of a break. And at that point, your pancreas actually can upregulate, where you can taper off of the insulin, and that will actually be in a place where now it can help you. So, it's one of the actual safest things that can be used when you use it the right way, because it's not going to cause any of, especially like for women, like any of like the masculine like side effects, but it has to be done in the right setting. Like, you use insulin to usually, like, if you want to crank up the growth hormone, insulin and growth hormone work synergistically together like peanut butter and jelly.
Is it necessary
What's that?
to stack the two?
If
Can you take insulin without using growth hormone?
You can, but my thing is, if you're going to run anything north of like 6 or 7 IUs or higher of growth hormone, the insulin is smart to actually take. It's actually going to benefit you in that regard, where you're not going to run into the insulin sensitivity issues that you would run into doing that without the insulin. Yeah.
So another question I want to ask you. It seems like a lot of people now have taken abuse to a whole new level. Talk about how counterproductive it is to take that more drugs is not better. And so many people think, oh, you can't get like this unless you take this amount, which in reality, a lot of the guys that are like that took far less than people.
100%. I have 2 people that I've worked with that I'll tell you that they were pros before me. They never made it to the Olympia. And then they went now to like where they're in, well, one of them doesn't compete anymore, but one of them now is top 3 at the Olympia. And I'll tell you the reason why that she didn't have the success previously is because, one, she has a little bit of a hereditary like trait where with her kidneys, where when she takes certain compounds, it causes a lot of stress on the kidneys. Well, and I've sat down and explained this to this individual that, look, even though you see this person taking something and it's working great for them, what will happen with certain people is if it's stressing your kidneys out, your kidneys can't filter metabolic waste anymore. Of course, you're probably running high blood pressure. So now you're talking about putting additional stress on the heart and all of your internal like organs, where when things aren't going right systemically, these drugs don't work the same way. Where in this person's case, she would get in decent shape, but she couldn't get that last bit of like granite hard conditioning because of the additional stress that the drugs were putting on the body. So, that's the thing. Like, the people typically that are getting in really, really good shape, you'd be surprised that a lot of times their blood work in a pre-contest setting isn't as bad as you would think that it would be. And that's because when we're in prep, number one, we're not carrying around an extra 50 pounds, which that's part of like a big stressor is carrying the extra weight. Number two, you're eating so clean that the amount of like oxidative stress on the body is actually a lot lower during that time. And everything is just functioning a lot more like properly because you're so on point with everything you're doing. Chances are you're using health supplements that are also like antioxidant supplements. So now, like, again, like there is definitely a stigma, especially in other countries. I notice overseas, like they are brought up with the mindset of like more is better. And I try to like tell them and explain to them that you'd be shocked that a lot of people that are competing at the Olympia level, there's people that are not even pros yet that are taking 3 times the amount.
I always said that. Talk a little bit about the training, Dom. What's your theories? Are you a volume trainer? Are you a Mike Mensa theory? I mean,
so I'm again like basic progressive overload, but again, like when I say that I'm a very data driven person, I think on every like you can do hypertrophy, create hypertrophy doing many different things. Like there's more than one way to skin a cat, whether you're a volume guy, lower volume. I think it bases upon like the individual. So like how I would do this and relate it to data, like say like in Regan's off season, his week 1 chest day, his 3rd movement was incline Smith machine presses. I have him record like certain muscle groups to bring up the weight and reps that he's doing. On that first week, he did 275 for 8 reps. Then the next week, that movement was moved to the front of the workout. Then he did 405 for 7 reps. So what does that tell you? That shows you that this person typically on those, especially those compound movements, is a little bit better doing slightly lower volume, that he kind of burns out a little quickly. So where we would add in like more volume would be towards the end of the workout so that, you're not pretty much blowing your whole load right away so that you have enough to make it through the whole workout.
Yeah, it was weird. My strength would increase as I went through the training. I was a huge volume.
That goes to show you though that
genetics,
you fall into, you actually fall into more of someone that would respond really well to higher volume. And now with how much technology has advanced, they actually have I bet you probably did one. They have DNA testing for that. And it tells you actually what training that your body actually responds well to from like a central nervous system standpoint. So for you, your body is sustaining ATP and being able to stay fulfilled throughout the whole workout, opposed to someone like that would be zapped from like the first exercise.
I did 20 sets of body part.
Yeah.
Always in 30 to 30 at least for back and legs,
See that
today I back down. I do about 9 total sets for body part because I'm just not as training with that aspect right now.
Yeah.
I don't push myself to be sore. Very rarely am I sore. Maybe some leg stuff. But I still focus on the same rep range, 10 to 12 reps. I don't go to failure.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever trained to failure. Does that surprise you?
Not if you were a volume guy. If you were a volume guy, then you probably didn't necessarily need to because of the sheer amount of volume and the fact that you said that from the beginning of your workout to the end, you were able to sustain the same type of performance from the beginning to the end.
And I'm a pre-exhaust movement. So like side laterals, my first exercise, always for shoulder.
Yeah.
My shoulder joints are great. Longevity. What type of training is the best for that?
I mean, obviously like longevity, if you can
try genetic.
There is everything in this sport. I'll tell you, everything is genetic. It is. When we're born, we're dealt a certain genetic card at birth. And when I say genetics too, I don't mean like
heart health, everything.
Everything. How your body metabolizes these drugs, that is genetics. I have another guy that he's been with me for 4 or 5 years. First 3 years, never took nothing. He's done 2 cycles. As soon as he goes on anything, it automatically starts taxing his kidneys, his liver enzymes. So like when he does go on a basic cycle of like testosterone and primo, I have to give him put him on a low dose of like Zeta for his lipids, like telmisartan for his blood pressure, these precautionaries to make sure that we're keeping these things in an optimal range. Where I've had some people where I've looked at what they've done and I'm like, oh my God, like this guy's health markers are going to be wrecked. And then I looked at him and he's perfectly fine.
But there's not a lot of coaches that do that request that much data. Like when and I feel like I just said, before I said, you're the fix-it guy. And it seems like all these guys are coming to you. Like I listened to Sergio talk about, I don't, sometimes I feel stupid when Dom talks to me about training. I should know how to train by now. And, Regan, obviously he's making these adjustments, because I'm just a guy, Dom, that this is what I don't understand. And maybe if you can talk about genetics with me, I just went to the gym and I worked out. I didn't have to really, and it's not like I still game planned and I'm like, okay, today I'm going to do this. But, you know, I'm one of these guys that I can do the same workout at week after week after week because the intensity is there. I didn't feel I needed to change. I stuck to more dumbbells and barbells.
Right there, what you just said. Right there. I get into this argument at least once a week. Why is my workout plan not changing? I have a clip actually of you. I think you were walking your dog. You specifically stated, for 15 years, I did the same exact workout routine. And I tell people this, and this is what I preach on. You need to identify the exercise selection that works best and stick with that. People's biggest mistake, they see this guy on doing this. Oh, like I want to try this. No, like you need to identify first, like what is working best for you, and then stick to that under like progressive overload guidelines. That's why with a lot of people too, you could be the best coach and have the best like workout plan that you think you're writing. You will not really be able to tell that unless you either were taking that individual and physically putting them through the workout to see if they're connecting the best with that, or you're really monitoring their training, because it could be totally different for everyone. And I'm so happy that you brought that up, that you were doing the
same order, same exercises. I found what worked best. Okay. So
why would you change it? Right.
I mean, I was a squatter on the Smith machine. I adapted to that after a while. I started using a squat on a 2x4 under my heels, you know, just to really
do that anymore.
Yeah,
it's great.
But I don't squat a lot of weight, but I still get under a bar today, 52, and I don't go heavy at all. Don't take it like everyone's like, oh, the compression on the spine, and it's just like doing standing calf raises.
Yeah.
What I don't do is shrugs. Like I don't do heavy shrugs to kind of jack my spine like that. So what's the point of training my traps at this point?
Yeah.
And you get in my day, I probably didn't even need to train traps, because you're getting so much production through your back training and, you know, shoulder, all your raises or whatever else. Right. But for me, I mean, I think, you know, there's just so many different, when you talk about the training, that's why I always wanted to know your theory. Do you really think it's individual with each person?
Absolutely. I think some people get a better response from certain types of training. I think it really boils down to the person.
Do you like to train with the people when you can? Like I saw you train with Regan. What was it, yesterday or?
Yeah, I did yesterday.
Were you pushing him like forced reps or?
Yeah. So like with Regan, his leg training is different because we're still like training around like slight like knee impingement. Yeah. So like we can't do all the things that I really want to do, but like his chest training, it was a matter of just telling him like, look, like you're strong as hell. Like you can do this. Like put the fucking weight on. And there he is doing 4 plates, no problem. Just little tweaks. Like when I was watching him work out, he had a habit of picking his head up. Well, when he picked his head up like this, when he would be pressing, it turned off like 50% of his upper pecs. I just told him, just keep your head back. And these are the loads that you're going to focus on lifting. And I told him, I said, look, now that you have your performance markers up to a certain threshold, you don't even need to necessarily increase it, but just moving the weight better. If you're moving the weight better, that still falls into progressive overload. If you're doing a squat and say, you know, you're squatting X amount of weight, and 2 weeks later, you're still doing the same weight, same reps, but you're getting better knee flexion. That's still progressive overload, and your quads are still going to grow.
Do you look at someone's structure, like, or their genetic makeup, and say, oh, this exercise, do you have that vision? You think at this point to say a hack squat's going to work better than a regular squat for someone?
So it really, again, in regards to that question, yes, like you can do a hack squat you can do a regular squat where you're going to try to target the same areas. But the thing is, you have to watch them and see how they're doing that squat, because you could do a squat and you could use all of your glutes. If you go ahead and you do a squat and say raise your heels up and you're getting good knee flexion, now you're isolating your quads, almost similar to doing a hack squat. So the way that I'll usually write up the workouts, say if I have someone, say in like Regan's case, want to bring up his upper pecs and his legs, his quads. So on like his chest day, I'll highlight in the workouts, like incline, let's say, incline Smith machine press, flat, dumbbell press. And then I'll want to see what those markers are each week. And then when he tells me, then I'm going to tell him, okay, like next week, do this weight for this many reps. And it might be one more rep than he did last week. So, and a lot of people too, people get away from free weights now. People run.
I was just going to say, you just mentioned 2 old school exercises. I think the flat dumbbell press is the best exercise for the pecs.
So do I.
Because you're always going to be a little stronger on one side, but I feel like that balance is necessary. So the kid that starts training at 16 or 18, they go in the gym and they have all these fancy, they have the Atlantis piece or the new tech, or I know some of these are like isolateral movements or hammer strength, for example. But they launched hammer strength when I was younger. Would you recommend the free weights to build that base?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like,
but why do people get away from it so much, Dom? Why have we become adapted to machine work?
Don't hold back.
I argue with Milos all the time.
Free weights are harder.
Yeah.
Let's face it. They're harder. They definitely are. Not saying that you can do a combination of both, but I'll tell you too, like when I was competing, I had a time frame for a year because everyone's like, you gotta be careful with barbell pressing. You're going to tear your pec. So I was like, you know what? All right, I'll take them out for a year. When I did that, there was a significant difference in my side chest pose when I removed
the density,
just that outer like lip of the side chest from
just like the Trend twins, how crazy their chests are from benching. Like,
yeah. So again, like you want to be smart about it, and like you might not want to start your workout and throw 5 plates on each side and go under a barbell. You want to make sure you warm up, and
that's how we all started, Dom. We did flat bench, incline, barbell.
Yeah.
Decline.
And then flied. Yeah, sometimes decline, but then we do like dumbbell flies. That would be like the chest workout.
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason why that's going to yield your best workout, in my opinion, by far. You know, the machines are really good, I feel like, too, especially like as you're getting in the later years of like your career.
Or injuries.
Yes, like to preserve a little bit more of your joints. You don't have to worry about the stabilizing muscle groups as much, where you could isolate the muscle a little bit differently. But what's going to build that hard, dense muscle is doing a lot of the free weights.
The house is already built.
You hear what he said? Yeah. The stabilizing.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference in the fibers.
Yeah. I don't know about you. I could look at someone a lot of times without knowing.
Say that guy uses machines.
And can tell an idea of how they train.
You know what's crazy? I always say this. Think of the top 10 of the Olympia. What's one guy looking at their physique, you know damn well he lifts heavy weight?
Toddy.
Yes. Period.
Nick Walker, too, bro, he used to do crazy weights, right?
Crazy.
I don't see him doing the crazy stuff.
So I'll tell you. So like,
because you worked with him for a minute
in 2022, yeah. But obviously when I started working with him, I studied everything that he did from when he was a teenager. He started off doing heavy free weights.
Crazy.
Like, even though people don't see him like anymore, don't get me wrong, he's gotten under a squat rack with 5 or 6 plates and buried that for 12 or 15 reps, no problem. Even like when I had him doing a lot of free weights, he presses 200-pound dumbbells with impeccable form.
Yes.
And that's what has built.
Yes.
That has
one of the few.
Well, Hadi does too, yeah.
That has what has built the foundation of his physique. Now that he has that, and this is what I was big on, like preaching to him, that he wasn't someone that had to put on 30 pounds of like tissue. That's why I told him to like bring up things like Increlex, things like that. I'm like, listen, if you were someone else, but the risk to reward in terms of potentially making your waist bigger isn't worth it. You're not someone that needs 30 pounds of tissue. Your physique just needs more like refining.
Yeah.
Exactly. Things like that, where he's at the point where he probably doesn't need to do a lot of
stupid
that he was doing when he was earlier. But at the end of the day, that's what built the foundation.
Did it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
But think about, look at all the physiques in the past. Everybody did heavy dumbbells, heavy bar. Even when you go to gyms now, most gyms don't even go above 120-pound dumbbells.
I know.
Very few. And back in the day, they all did.
Do you ever look at Sergio, bro, and think, God, he's a big human.
He is he is like one of the biggest, like,
and in shape, like
absolutely. He's 310 right now. And I'm telling you, he's probably close to single digit body fat. He really is.
Like he could compete realistically in the 80s, right?
Oh
Yeah.
And still, I'm probably not be as, but he literally could get on stage and probably be pretty impressive in the 80s, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely has it. His thing really, which is surprising because it's like, he's been a pro for a while. He's never really taken a full structured off season.
Well, because he's always all over the place.
Or he's got some issue where it's an injury, or he had the thing that happened in Dubai where that happened, where that's
Or
why
he's moving, or
something that is, putting some sort of roadblock. But that's why I told him he originally wanted to do the Arnold. And I sat him down, I'm like, look, whenever I sit down with someone, I look at the whole big picture. I look at strategically picking these shows that's going to set your career path in the right direction that makes the most sense. I also look at it too, like if I was like prepping you, like when you were in your Olympia runs, I look at too, like, what's Jay going to want like 10 years from now? Because let's face it, like when we're knees deep in prep, you're not thinking about that shit. So I try to look at that for all of my athletes. And I told like Sergio, I said, look, one, if you do the Arnold, the next show, there's like a Detroit Pro show that's after that. But after that, there's a 9-week, 8-week break. And it's one thing to have someone that big and get them peaked in show shape, but have to maintain that conditioning for that long. And I told him, I said, look, you figure at least 2 of the top 5 guys at the Arnold are going to roll into Detroit too. So then
the next week.
Yeah. So then if you figure you have to do one more to lock down your Olympia qualification, holding that is going to be rough. That I said, when you weigh out, I literally write like pros and cons to each situation. When you weigh out the pros and the cons, and I said, another thing, you've never had, very, very rarely have ever had a 10-week time frame that you had no injuries, no limitations, where you're able to train and be in a caloric surplus in a time frame. So I said, what you do right now, and this is what I preach to people also, what you're doing 6 and 8 months before the show, that's really what's going to set you up. That's what determines how well that prep goes, is what you are doing 6 to 8 months prior, both from a metabolic standpoint, in terms of, the tissue that you have on your frame solidified, because sometimes like where people will go ahead and they'll transition to a prep too early, some of that new tissue that they put on is the first thing to go, like once they get down. So when you weigh out those pros and cons, that's why it made more sense to shoot for more the New York timeframe, because there's a couple of shows there. You hit New York, and then there's a few other ones like
shows in
Regions. There's a bunch of them. So
It's
I feel like as a pro, especially new pros, when you're going to the Olympia, I feel like, especially making the smartest career choices, you need to be strategic about the shows that you pick, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, luckily for a lot of my career, I was doing Arnold early, and then it's like I was qualifying, right?
I mean, you were dangerous right out of the gate. Like, you qualified for your first Olympia.
No, I missed it the first year, 98. I sat out 97, but I 99 I qualified because it was, I got a 3rd and a 4th at the Arnold Ironman, qualified me top 5 at the Arnold then. And then Olympia, I had to requalify the next year, won the Night of Champions, and from then on, it was just boom, boom.
Yeah.
I was able to just keep going. Top 10 qualified. The whole scope has kind of changed. So as far as the Olympia these days, I mean, it seems like everyone's goal is to get the Olympia. Arnold's paying more money. Big line up there. How do you feel about modern bodybuilding, like watching the shows? I mean, you live in Vegas. I mean, you attend the shows. You help a lot of people for this. Did you help anyone last year in the open men?
At the Olympia?
Yeah.
I had 6 athletes doing the Olympia. Regan was the only open
Okay.
competitor that I had competing. But I had 2 female bodybuilders, classic physique, 2 women's physique, and I think, that makes 6 of them, yeah.
And how important do you feel is that Olympia qualification to people on their agenda these days? Does it seem like anyone in the pro ranks, is that their ultimate goal, or are they really just trying to secure sponsorship, win certain shows? I mean, is it in the end to try to qualify for the Olympia, I feel like?
The goal should be obviously to qualify obviously for the for the Olympia. That should be the goal. But my thing is not qualify for the Olympia, go to the Olympia and be competitive there. So like when I met my fiance, I told her like, you can definitely qualify. You're taking second and third every show. If you go into a show that isn't like a stacked lineup, you'll get it. But I said, I'm gonna be honest with you. What's your goal? You want to go and
Stand.
You did be a participant. You want to get a jacket? Do you want to go?
Sometimes that's people's goals, Dom, and that was never my goal. I went to win every time.
I mean, you invest so much into this. How could that just be, you know what I mean? Like if you're going to go there, you want to go there to compete, you know?
Yeah.
And what I told Amanda at the time, I said, look, you can't go to the Olympia and be competitive and have a missing body part. And at that point, she didn't have any back. And I'm like, that's an important body part. That's like where the show's usually won from. So I said, look, what do you want to do? If you wanted to go, then we could hit this next show in Arizona, or we can stop this now and go into an off season, take a whole year off. And then she did that. And then her physique went from somebody that was maybe an Olympia level to now she's beating girls that are, top 6, top 5.
Okay, let me ask you this. So you improved her back.
Yes.
What was the number one exercise to help her?
You want to know what one of the biggest things was? She was training without Versa grips or straps. She's pulling everything with
her biceps and
her rear delts. But I noticed that there was movements. Like for me, I get good contractions on my lower lats doing supinated movements. I see her doing them, the biceps come on right away. So it's like, all right, those got to go. And, just making sure she wasn't pulling anything with
You
her.
think it's important to pull with the fingers rather than like a closed fist? Or
I think just making sure that just be very mindful that you're not using like your biceps.
Dominant,
There are little cues to like when you're training like biceps. I was always big on kind of like breaking my wrist a little, not rolling my wrist up. I felt like that really helped help you get a better like peak control.
So you sit and watch her train and you can visually see all this.
After
that's why you go to the gym and you train like with these guys.
Yeah,
Watch Regan
I'll go do, or like people that, because I coach people all around the world, different countries. I'll periodically have them send videos to me or like one of my other coaches. And then from there, we could start to pick apart exactly what it's doing.
And what about you work with a lot of masters people.
Yeah.
Where did those people see their future?
So
to win the Masters, to go to the Olympia?
One, like depending on how old they are. I mean, someone in their 40s or mid 40s, like they can, Danny Hester, I think, won the classic physique in I think he was 46. I think
Sean won the Open at 43, 44.
No, he was older than that, I think.
43, 44.
But yeah, it's people that are in their mid 40s, but I have people too that are in their 50s, 60s. One, I have to sit down and tell them and set realistic expectations, because I do have a couple of them that if I just let them, they would be pushing they would probably be dead. So I set realistic expectations and said, look, realistically, like I had 2 guys that won the overall in the Master Nationals in bodybuilding, great, granite hard. And they're like, I don't want to compete I want to compete in open pro shows. I'm like, okay. I said, in an open bodybuilding show, you're going to get buried. I don't care about how conditioned you are. It's a muscle game. And, this one person, I have him he competes in classic open, but in the Masters too. And I set realistic expectations with them. I said, look, if your goal is, we want to go to the Masters, like Olympia, contend there, we can, but we have to set realistic expectations. And then I've had some too that don't really grasp this. Like I had one person, and the crazy part is this guy works in the medical field, that he had like some cardiovascular issues, super high calcium score. And I told him, I said, look, my recommendation is, man, like you have kids, you have a wife, like the risk to reward, like you do understand, like us continuing to do this, you're at a major, major risk factor. And he straight up told me, I was like, listen, I don't care if I don't do this, like I won't be happy in my own skin. So I said, all right, fine. You are going to sign an additional like health waiver that the doctor at the time I was working with, I wrote out like the blockages that he had, where they were, and wrote it. And then, cause at first I was like, I'm not coaching you. And then he flat out told me, he goes, well, if you don't, I'm going to go back to what I was doing in the 80s and the 90s. And I'm like, I'll definitely be dead then. So sometimes there are, and this is the thing with me, there are moral conflicts that you run into.
But you understand it, Dom, because you were a competitor. And as smart as people think I was, I like, you know, they always say that, hey, this is going to take this much time off your life, but you're going to win this. My thinking was like, I just want to win.
Yeah.
And now I'm 52. And I think the biggest question, what bothers me the most today is that bodybuilding is portrayed as it's not healthy at all. Listen, we're pushing the envelope. I think any sport you push the envelope. I think I abused like the drugs, the food, the whole, like this, I beat the shit out of my body every day. But the truth is I did pull back. Like we went cold turkey after a show.
Came off.
Yeah, this is where I'm going with this. So I would just stop.
I know Matt was telling me.
I would stop. Like, and say, oh, and not even think about taking anything at all. And I've said this publicly, and I know a lot of TRT people, experts, say that's the worst thing for you. I mean, dude, my test would drop to nothing.
Yeah.
But I didn't, that's what we all did.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that Ronnie did it, Kevin did it, Sean did it, I did. I mean, I can go on the list.
Everyone.
Why is it so different?
Two things. One,
I'm talking about the guys that go extreme. I'm not talking about the general guy that is, you know, a normal person
saying
that's
for like
taking testosterone replacement therapy.
you're saying for an open guy.
Yeah, for a guy that, or anyone. I mean, the protocols, you know, in any division, I'm just saying in general, the person.
Yeah.
Why is there cruising or bridging or like still continuing?
So, well, two things. One, the thing that I really don't agree with at all, and I've even called up other clinics and gotten in arguments with them about this. Like, why do you have a 23-year-old kid on hormone replacement therapy that had no hormonal issues whatsoever? Which a lot of them, again, like for someone that's in their 20s, it is beneficial. And another thing too that no coaches ever ask, no one ever asks this: do you want to have kids when you get older? At some
The
point,
doctors asked me all the think
I mean, that's good, but think about it. Bodybuilding coach, what we're doing here could definitely affect that. So I do ask them that. And again, you can still compete at that level and not have it be detrimental to your health. You can. It is possible, 100%. But you need to take certain precautionary measures along the way.
What are some of those?
Some of those are as basic as this. The three main things that cause most cardiovascular disease and terminal illness is elevated blood glucose, insulin resistance, high blood pressure, and systemic inflammation. Two out of those three things that I just named, you can check at home with a $30 monitor. You can check your blood sugar at home. You can check your blood pressure. Anybody that I've seen right now that I have to have them on Repatha, that I'm trying to reverse, blockages that they have and horrible left ventricle hypertrophy and regurgitation, it's all because at some point in their life, they were walking around with one of those three markers for an extended period of time. That is it. And mostly because when you run like high blood sugar, you have like high inflammation, it deteriorates something called the endothelium, which is a like inner wall of these cells, like a protective wall of these cells. Actually, Dr. Pierce gave me a good analogy of it. He said that he would compare it to like the surface of a nonstick frying pan that wraps around all the inner walls of your cardiovascular tissue. And when you have high blood glucose,
it wears it off.
It penetrates that wall, penetrates it. where when you have like plaques and things like that, it sticks to it like Velcro. So if people just monitored those 3 basic things, then they would be able to prevent a lot of it. The whole thing is, and this is what sucks about like what I do for a living, is when somebody comes and they're like, I have all these issues now. Now reversing them, that's a whole nother can of worms to get into.
Can you?
You can, but it's a lot more. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot that goes into it. And number 1, 2, depends on where you live. Do you have health insurance, right? So say you have a high calcium score. I usually follow certain steps. If you have a high calcium score, if it's over, let's say 800, the next thing to go for is an angiogram. An angiogram, actually, they give you contrast, and it'll tell you exactly where the blockage is, how bad it is. It's like the holy grail of cardiovascular tests.
I just did the whole dye test and all that.
You did?
I went through it, yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Just for precautionary.
They did like the catheter too. Yeah, I mean, it's an extensive test. It is. Yes. But if you have a perfect calcium score, you probably don't need that. But that is, if someone has a clean angiogram, that's a good peace of mind for you for sure. But I have had people. I had someone that had a really good bodybuilder that had to have his career cut short, have a high calcium score. And he's like, man, my doctor, like, they won't write the prior authorization. And I was like, go to the hospital right now and start complaining that you're having chest pains. You can't breathe. They have to give it to you. You have a high calcium score. They got to give it to you. Goes to the hospital. I'm talking on the phone. He's like, they're prepping me for it. I'm like, oh, good. Thank God. He gives him his insurance card. They look at his insurance, take everything off of him, give him an EKG and send him home because he didn't have the right health insurance.
Welcome to America.
But that's the reality of it.
But you talk about Repatha, it's better than statin, right? It's not a statin, right?
It's different.
But what it's going to do is it's going to harden that soft plaque, right?
It's going to help. It's going to help reverse some of the blockages that
LDL
that you do have. It does help lower like LDL. Yeah. If I see someone, let's say that's starting to have like their lipid ratios like kind of go to shit with bodybuilders, your HDL is usually pretty bad, typically.
Testosterone, right?
Yeah, any sort of fat solubles, which they all pretty much are. I mean, again, like there's ways of reversing that with certain.
Mine's gone up a lot since I quit.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
that's the main thing you see.
Yeah,
but it's not as big of a deal if your LDL is not that bad because the good
total
cholesterol,
story, of course,
is removing it, so it's not that bad. But now, if you get something like where all right, your HDL's in the teens and your LDL and your lipoproteins through the roof. Now that's a little bit of a problem where I don't like statins because statins, the mechanism of action's in the liver. And sometimes too, I think it's 1 out of 8 people that go on a statin will develop type 2 diabetes. So there's a lot of nasty side effects. So like I would use a low dose of like Zeta where that doesn't impact the liver, where that's just going to block bad cholesterol more so like in the bloodstream and the digestive tract. So taking these precautionary steps is.
Do you think the high carbohydrate diets and sugar after sugar is the worst thing for the heart?
It's the worst thing, period.
Yes.
Period. That and alcohol.
Because I mean, we used to pound. I would drink Coca-Cola or whatever after I trained. Like, I got to just restore glycogen, right?
Yeah.
Sugar, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I looked at it. So, but I would use a Carbo Force. I would have one of those. But what about growth hormone? Do you think that causes calcium also?
So anything that's going to screw up your insulin resistance, that's the number one killer of anything is going to be sugar and insulin resistance. In your case, you were born to do this. You were on every way, shape, or form in front. You were. So like on a cellular level, definitely. Even when you weren't taking insulin, your body's insulin sensitivity probably was still so good, and your pancreas was producing enough insulin that you weren't walking around with elevated like blood glucose. And throughout your career, I'm sure you were being like monitored too, periodically.
Of course. I mean, but listen, it's I did my whole heart thing and everything, little calcium, and I'm 52 years old.
You're going to have a little bit.
A little bit. I was a little disappointed because my score wasn't 0, right? But
Was it below 500?
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, no,
so-
it's like 120 or 140.
In the United States, they won't even let you get an angiogram unless it's over it's got to be over like 600 to get it.
So, but I know a lot of people that have big scores.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I participated back in 2002. We did a whole growth hormone study. They were doing I did a stress test and on the treadmill, all that to see. And I was completely clean. I was 28. You know what I mean? Like I had no calcium. It was still early in my career, right? But I always wonder, like, because, you hear about all these different, I just heard that guy that was taking like 100 IUs of growth a day or something.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I mean.
Who's this?
I don't know. It was some bodybuilder or something. So, like, I mean, have the protocols changed in that sense? I mean.
They've gotten more extreme. And you know what the other problem is? There's all these new designer things coming out, designer peptides, things like that, where I see people sometimes, I'm talking about people that are good pros, taking 10 IUs of growth hormone, and they're using growth hormone mimicking peptides. That means that these people have no clue what they're doing, because it's like,
what's an arsenal?
Well,
they're
like,
just trying to make sure they don't miss a beat.
I tell them with the growth hormone mimicking peptides, like, if you want better bang for your buck, then take exogenous growth hormone. It's hitting all 191 chains, where, like, people are just taking stuff
just to
take it, because it is a very trendy thing. And there are things like, there are absolutely incredible peptides. There are, but you should be taking them for the right reason, not just like, oh, I'm just going to take this just to take it,
People are, I was telling Jay the other day, I'm in the gym, I'm sitting there, and there's a guy that doesn't even look like he trains much. He's on a phone call next to me selling peptides.
Yeah.
Yo, man, you got to take this and this and this, and I'm going to send you. I'm like thinking, like, what the, like, anyone just thinks that nobody wants to work hard anymore. They just want the easy way out.
No. And the thing is, with a lot of these new, even GLPs, like targeting 3-4 pathways, and these other things that are coming out, myostatin inhibitors now. That's going to be something that
They've been talking about for years.
I'll tell you, I have some experience in using them, but what I can't stand is when you have someone that goes on YouTube and they pull up a rodent study on something and they make this seem like it's a miracle drug. I'll tell you, like, I've had at least 6 to 9 top level veteran competitors take them, because I'll use them sometimes with people that when they're at a certain plateau, and I'll tell you, they work for sure, but they will, at least as of right now, like when you're looking at like follistatin and things like that, wreck your health markers. I had 2 guys that were type 1 diabetics, and the great thing about them, they wear those constant CGMs.
Yeah.
So after like the first, like going into the second week, dude, their diabetic markers were all over the place, like from it. I just think that they still are in the earlier stages of it, where to make it where it's not negatively impacting like everything, where it just needs to benefit like from a muscle tissue and hypertrophy standpoint. But I do think that that's something that we'll see evolve a lot. But again, you have people that don't know nothing about this that are going to be like, you know what, I'm going to be the guinea pig. And they are really the ones that are, testing it on themselves.
Do you think there's people there without like the myostatin gene? They talk about that, like a big Rami, for example, like someone can get that large.
Yeah. Definitely.
Michael Lockett too, right?
Yeah. I'm one of the people
we just saw him at the gym.
Here's some of the golds.
And how does he look?
Ridiculous. I said, dude, you're still like, because I thought you were boxing, and he's like, nah, I'm done. I'm just working out. And I'm like, bro, how do you look like this?
Yeah. I know someone that like helped him like a little bit. I don't know if he was like coaching him, but it was like trying to give him a diet. And he's like, I don't even know what to do with this guy. Like he eats like 2 or 3 meals a day. Like one of them's fast food. He takes 5 milligrams of Winstrol a day, and he just looks like that. I do think that there are people that naturally do have that. I think that Phil Heath was probably one of them.
He is.
Because like when you look at him,
for sure,
he's got like muscles that are growing.
They call it 3D, but it's just like he looks like you blew him up.
I have this funny story. Phil had to guest pose in Kuwait. This is 12 years ago, And about maybe 3 weeks out, he hadn't trained in months, and he was probably like 230. And I'm like, he had his shirt off, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? You got a guest pose. Like, he's like, don't worry about it. I just need 3 weeks. And 3 weeks later, he was 280, and it looked like he had never, he was ridiculous. He put like almost 2 pound, or a pound and a half a day on like that.
I believe it. Probably the only interesting thing that I learned out of school in all those years was that we looked at a nucleus of a muscle cell under a microscope, but it was in like timestamps. So pretty much the nucleus of a muscle cell before it actually starts to mutate and change was something like 10 to 15 years. So let's say like wherever you were once at one point, your body realistically can get back to that in a relatively short time frame. Granted, like you go back to like what you were doing to get there, it'll bounce back to that very, very quickly. Now surpassing that, that's a little bit of a different story, but it can get back to where it once was. I'm sure like if you jumped on some shit and went back.
I think if you just ate 6 meals a day, you'd put 20 pounds on.
Because you're still holding on to a good.
And that's only because I train.
Yeah.
I'm on a TRT dose, but very little, and not really as consistent, to be honest. But the food, I mean, if I eat I eat 4 good meals a day, but I train light for pump. I don't go extremely heavy. Like I said, I don't get sore, and I do cardio twice a day.
Yeah, that's
very important for me. But I'm very concerned at 52. About being. The longevity of being in shape and being in shape in my insides.
Absolutely.
And I don't have any, there's no health, I don't have any health markers. Like my blood tests are normal, but you get up to that age and you're like, okay, what's real life? And I just want to be functional. I want to train. I don't want to get now I think about, I can do 100-pound dumbbell presses, but why?
Yeah.
Because I can do 50s and just do a couple more reps and really get a nice burn. And then it's like, okay, get the burn. Now I know I'm kind of hitting the fibers a little bit, and then I back off. So like I said, I've backed down now, which is even recently, the last 6 months, to 9 total sets of body part. I've never done that ever in my training.
Yeah.
But I'm still maintaining a decent physique. Would I like to be leaner? Yes. But to be honest, my diet's not impeccable.
Yeah.
On certain aspects. I'll still eat, like yesterday I had an out burger, and you know what I mean? And I don't have cheat days, but I have days where I'm like, I'm going to go a little lighter on it. You know?
That's the same way that I eat too. But you're still able to maintain a certain amount of like muscle, your health, and enjoy like life. You have to think like, is it worth you dropping 2% body fat to really,
And I feel like it ages you a lot more if you stay too lean all the time. So I feel like, just having my diet controllable and not have to be locked down and be able to eat out. But I still eat clean on a diet. Like when I eat out, I'm super clean compared to everyone else.
Yeah, he's the only person who goes to Cheesecake Factory and gets chicken and rice.
Yeah.
It's not even on the menu. He still gets
But
it.
you know what, you know what the funny thing is, and I can tell, like anyone, I wouldn't even know how to, I know this sounds crazy, but I can write it. I can sit here and I can say, I could train you. I could write a diet for you. But I don't think I could diet myself.
I think sometimes the same things. Like I look back to what I did, like even when I was wrestling and like running 7 miles a night, I'm like, I don't know if I'd be able to do that again.
Like if I said, okay, I have 10 weeks, I would probably have to bounce ideas off people around me to be like, hey, how am I looking? Or, Chris was like that. I remember when Chris was competing when I was, coming up. I was really the only one he was really training. He was training Mike Francois. I did a little with Paul DeMeo at the time, but I remember he was trying to win nationals and he just couldn't peak himself.
Yeah.
And this is a guy with all,
Before
I feel like all the
Bob or
knowledge.
after Bob?
After Bob. This is like when he was helping me as a, get to the nationals and all that. And he was a big dude,
Yeah.
But I think it's just really hard sometimes to lock myself in, and the discipline isn't necessarily there now. That switch is gone. So once you lose that mentality, and I always say this, when a guy steps out of the arena for at least a year, it's so hard to come back because you don't realize that dark place you need to go to be able to be your absolute best. And I even say like we always talk about Phil Heath coming back because I feel like Phil still has he
has the physique.
Yeah.
The deflated physique. Yeah. But if that, like he said, he can go
pump
eat
it up
for
in 2 months.
Like if I locked him in the house, like I was talking about Regan, and lock him in a house and just make sure it sounds like he's doing everything now.
I still have to like use a lot.
I know, but
But
think about it. If that kid with his genes,
Definitely.
he's got the structure and the genes, and that's why like he's such a big guy, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like looking at Sergio, like like he walks in here, I'm like, holy shit! Like
It's like one of the bigger.
I look at him and I say, man, was I that big? Yeah. That's how I look at Sergio a lot, and I was massive in my heyday, but I sit in Olympia, watch from the first row, and I'm like, I look at like a Samson and. Like I look at Hottie and like that razor condition, and I'm like, damn, what did I look like up there?
I mean, you looked like that.
Yeah,
I know.
but it was crazy because I take myself out of that now.
Yeah. It's different when you're training and you're training for a title to be the best in the world. That ignites something that I feel like nobody could explain. And I feel like when you, like you said, when you lose it, and I know 2 people even right now that are top pros, and I've had someone when he turned pro earlier, I see this happens to them. If they get too much fame too early, like it, and they feel like they're Mr. Olympia before they actually are,
They get comfortable.
It takes that hunger away. That to me, looking at an athlete, I would rather have somebody that has that than has the best genetics in the world, because ultimately I'll take the harder worker. Like if granted you need to have some genetics and a work ethic, but somebody could have impeccable genetics and someone just have moderate genetics but have an extreme work ethic. I'll take the guy with the work ethic any day.
Do you think, coming from the East Coast, talk about the aura of the gyms? You train at all these. What do you train in Vegas?
I
Bounce around,
dragons everywhere. Yeah.
So, like, we have cell phones now, social media. I mean, you fell in that era a little bit when you were competing. Do you feel like it's hindrance today?
100%. I walk into the gyms. I said this on another podcast. I walk into any of these gyms. I see guys that are 150 pounds that have this whole like tripod set up thing going on, and they're asking people like, oh man, like, how do I get the most interaction on my like Instagram and I said to a kid one day, I'm like, look, I'm going to give you the best piece of advice ever. And I swear to you, if you put that same focus into everything in the gym, and I said, do this, go 6 months without missing one meal. And I promise you that will benefit you more than anything. And I let him know, I'm like, look, do you think Bumstead, when he first like turned pro, he was walking around with a camera crew? That happened as a byproduct because of what you were doing to your physique.
He was a couple Olympias in before he got to that.
Yeah, where you're actually getting paid for people to follow your journey, where people have it the reverse now. Which it's great that you have opportunities from social media, but it kills a lot of that drive that you should be putting.
Can I ask you a question? Why are you here in Vegas?
What brought me here?
No. Why are you still here? Why do you choose to live in Las Vegas?
Oh, I love Las Vegas.
Why?
Absolutely. Because, well, one, like I came from New York. So after COVID.
How much snow they just get there yesterday?
Yeah, dumped that. So after COVID, New York just went to shit.
Yeah.
And after I stopped working at like any sort of internal medical, when I was like coaching 100% full time, I'm living in Manhattan. I was going to build a house in Long Island. Property taxes where I was building is $23,000 a year. I'm like, I don't have kids. I don't need to be here. Why am I still here? So then I told you I went to North Carolina for the medical clinics and then came out here. And I think that Vegas is one of the best places in the country to live. And I went through 4 years where I bounced around. I was in Florida for about a half a year, North Carolina. I was all over the place. So I got to really experience and see. And I know when I came here, I'm like, this is definitely, both me and Amanda love it.
Do you think it helps your business a lot being in this location? Because you're viral. I mean, you're online.
I mean, technically, like I can work from anywhere, but I do think without a doubt, this is the best place to be. Like next week, I have one of my best friends and my other like coach and partner, Adam. He's flying out here from Florida, but we have 2 clients from Japan that are flying here. A client from Mexico that's coming here. About probably 15 different people that are coming here because this is a great central hub to meet at. It's turning into like kind of a mecca of the West Coast.
It's the fitness capital of the world.
Yeah,
it is.
So, I mean, what better place?
Did you ever think you'd be living in Vegas though, looking from the East Coast?
Like when I was competing?
Yeah.
No, I definitely did not at all. It kind of.
Did you just think it was a strip?
Yeah, just like everyone else.
Everybody does.
And to tell you the truth, now that I live here,
You don't even pay attention to the strip, right?
I maybe go there once every 2 months to go out to dinner. Yeah. Like it's someplace I rarely
It's so funny when people think of Vegas like, I can't believe you live there. It's crazy. I'm like, actually, it's probably one of the most laid back, mellow places in America away from the strip.
Is there any, do you have a strip restaurant that you ever go to that you like, well, that's our place? Or
I'm going to tell you something. The food here, that's the only thing I had to adjust to. I think the food compared to New York City, it's just no comparison. I even was going to restaurants that I go to in New York that are also here, and I'm like,
not the same.
That's not the same. But what it comes down to, it's the dough, the water supposedly.
Yeah, the city water,
like the pizza, the bagels. But there still is amazing food here for sure. But my favorite one on the strip, it's probably is Mastro's.
Yeah.
In the Aria.
Yeah.
Place is pretty good.
Yeah, and Crystals, yeah.
I had a friend years ago in Florida. His dad opened a pizza shop in Tampa, and he would bring water down city water to get that authentic flavor. It's something in the city water.
You can taste it in the bagels. Like I went back, we went back in November, and because I was trying to explain to Amanda, she's like, the bagel, like here, I'm like, eat this. And she's like, wow, there is a big difference. I told you. Yeah.
So you were just in Brazil.
Yeah. We just got back. I was there for 2 weeks. Amanda was there for a month. It was great there. It's hot as hell there. Their summers there. Their seasons are opposite. They have probably one of the most passionate bodybuilding.
I was going to say they've taken over the industry quite a bit.
Like me and Amanda, and again, like,
did they treat you like
royalty?
Yeah.
And again, like, I'm not a Mr. Olympia and nothing like that, but if you're even someone that has even gone to the Olympia, or you've coached anyone, like we were in 3 different cities, and 2 out of the 3 different, we try to find like the best bodybuilding gyms. 2 out of 3 of the gyms closed the gym down, opened it privately to have us there. And then it was just us and like any pros that live there. And just the hospitality of the people.
How was the food?
Good, very good. The food quality is night and day better. Like the quality of like the meat and everything there. And it's about 1/8 of the price of what it is. But yeah, no, it's really.
I think about that all the time. Me and him talk about this, like long-term health. You kind of want to be somewhere where your food isn't poisoned.
Yeah,
I mean, it's poison here.
Can I ask you this, Dom? I always say the food is the biggest killer in bodybuilding rather than everything else because of the extreme amount. And like, I feel like that's the biggest risk. Don't you feel like that? Like if people's genetic markers are like limited?
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely one of the main variables that plays a major role because let's face it, like you're jumping up at points, increments of like 40, 50 pounds in a short time frame. And essentially, if you are jumping up anything more than like 13% of your total body weight, that's going to put stress on your body without a doubt. And a thing that I'm big on that probably not too many people do, at some point, I'll have a phase where I give their GI tract a little bit of a break where I pull them down to where they're fasting for like 16 hours a day where they only eat between a certain window. They're still eating a good amount of food, but I just give their actual GI tract a little bit of a break.
Is it necessary?
It's not necessary, but
cautionary.
You see all these people pulling out of the Olympia for like leaky gut, things like that, which is super, super easy to fix. But I try to incorporate these things. Again, preventative measures are always a million times like better to go than having to reverse issues.
Do you believe in like probiotics and taking supplementation?
To be honest, not real. Not really, because again, when you take a probiotic, if you want to get all this stuff from whole foods, you get all of your pre and probiotics. A lot of that you would get from your whole food, having a variety in diet, making sure too that you're still eating vegetables. A lot of people don't eat vegetables, even in prep.
I wasn't huge a vegetable eater.
In prep too, like I would say a soluble fiber supplement is probably the most important supplement, especially if your carbs are never really that low, where you probably experience this. Where
I never had.
Did you ever get constipated
Never. No, come on.
Because you were eating plenty of, carbs.
Even when I fly or whatever, other people get constipated, or
Yeah.
even when I was drinking no water.
Yeah.
I never had a gut. The only time I had a gut is when I was eating a ton of oatmeal to carb up, and it just sat sometimes. It wasn't digesting.
Well, just the amount of food that you would need to eat for someone that's your size.
I think I overate though, Dom. I think I overate too much, thinking that, I think it got more and more and more. It became like it took an hour for me to eat food.
I think
12, sometimes almost I ate a pound of fish every meal.
That's crazy.
White fish, but then I would eat 12 to 14 ounces of meat.
How many times a day?
6 times.
You see, for me, the thing that blows my mind was the amount of protein that you guys ate, that you never ran into like GI issues or stomach acid.
But that's why I started this podcast to say, are everyone pussies? Because, dude, we just did what we were told. And there was protocol, and I feel like our protocol was like this, Dom. The protocol is like this now because there's so many opinions. And that's why I said, how do you know? And how do you go through these processes to wean out, okay, you can't eat this or you can't eat that, or you're talking about fasting and all these things that, dude, when I started bodybuilding, it was just easy. You just ate 6 meals. I had that diet on my refrigerator. It was like 8 ounces of meat, and then that rose to 10, and then to 12, and then to 14. Whoa, I'm so much bigger now. But I still feel like I didn't peak always best because I felt like the food was just so overwhelming. And I was never hungry. I would wake up in the morning, okay, first meal, I'm hungry. Meal after training, hungry. A meal before training. But as it was like, I got to eat this meal.
So
in my early career, I was hungry all the time. I was like, oh my God, I got to drink in between meals because I was just so hungry.
I would have loved to study you back in the day, because typically when you were saying the thing about the appetite, if someone tells me like I'm not hungry, the first thing I go to, I tell them, check your blood sugar. Because that's usually what would be consistent with that. Like if you're not hungry at all, it's because you're running high blood sugar. If you've ever done insulin, you go hypoglycemic. Are you hungry?
Yes.
Starving, right? So when you were younger and you were saying, man, I was hungry, guarantee you, your blood sugar was coming down. But again, like, I don't know if you weren't hungry necessarily because your blood sugar was running high. I do think in your case, one, you worked very, very hard. You just said too, you did the same training with the same level of intensity for
I
years.
overtrained too. I overtrained for sure.
But with like overtraining again too, like when people bring that up, yeah, you can, but it's really hard to do that. Like, let's face it, like we're taking a bunch of drugs that are aiding like recovery. For somebody that's natural, that's a little bit different, but how you would diet someone and coach someone that's natural is also a little bit different than someone that's enhanced. So, a lot of times like people will use that term actually like overtraining. Most of the people, I would say 90% of the people that say that are just being pussies. They're not overtrained, but there are a handful of certain cases, but you can tell certain things if they are like with their central nervous system. But most of the
I was
time,
doing cardio twice a day and 2 weight sessions a day. I was in the split.
Yeah.
Hour treadmill in the morning, eat a couple meals, go train once, come home, eat, sleep, wake up, train again.
Yeah.
5 hours later, and then another cardio session an hour before bed.
Yeah.
My legs hurt so bad, and they would shrink. But I'm like, oh, they'll come back.
Yeah.
Because I had genetic legs, right? I mean, I knew my legs were always the shape alone.
Yeah.
Didn't measure huge on a tape measure, but they were you know what I mean? All right, guys, the new flavor Buzzin' Orange is available now. You can grab this over at jcutler.com. Make sure you check it out. We're having a sale right now. Liquid L-carnitine, 3,000 milligrams. You guys want to get that crazy metabolism boost? Let's go. About diet soda. What do you think about diet soda and Splenda and all that?
I think, first of all, everything, the poison is in the amount that you're taking. So with diet,
if Matt drinks a whole case, how much are we drinking?
You don't want to know.
Tell me how many.
I don't know. I don't know.
How many cans you think a day?
I used to, at least 12.
A day.
I drank soda all day, soda and coffee.
So the thing that they have not like been able to prove, even though you'll read this, that like aspartame and maltodextrin can cause like cancer. They don't have a definitive answer, in my opinion, on that for sure. They don't. I think, again, that you should try to take it in like moderation. But if you were drinking one diet soda a day or like one every other day, that's not going to be a problem like at all. And with stuff like stevia and Splenda, in my opinion, those are totally fine. I don't see any like issues.
I never cut them for the shows.
What?
Like Splendas and like.
So when I was competing, I didn't either. And I would be completely like bone dry. Some people though, like typically like
they hold water.
Say guys like a Samson or like a Akeem Williams that have like thicker skin. Some of them, I would go ahead and have them move them. I had a men's physique guy that was really good, like a top 5 Olympian. And I would have to like watch him. Like I would catch him 2 days out dumping packets of Taco Bell like seasoning on his beef. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, no, like you cannot.
Well, Ronnie Coleman did it.
If you if you ask me in all seriousness, I really like thought about this long and hard. I guarantee you, if he didn't use that barbecue sauce, he could have maybe could have gotten one more Olympia title at some point if he didn't use the barbecue sauce.
You know, you and Ronnie are just genetic anomalies. So whatever you guys did, it's not going to work for other people. It worked for you.
It depends. Like I was able to get away. I used artificial sweeteners up until the day of the show. But some people, to get that last bit of like super like cross-striated, like lower back, glutes and like hams in, some people it does require like removing that. I allow most people to have it in, and I just tell them, last week you're training, 10 plus years for this day. You could take it out for 1 week, like if you deal with it. Yeah, you'll be fine. So, again, like in moderation, it's fine. But again, like I wouldn't be drinking, 2 gallons of diet soda a day.
Which you prefer to train? You've been training a lot of pros. Obviously, you deal with a lot of female, but like, do you enjoy training because a lot of people have steered away from training a lot of the top bodybuilders now.
So I'll tell you,
because it seems like they jump. They one show goes bad, and I wanted to ask you too before I forgot. How many shows does you feel it's like, okay, I've figured someone out?
Someone's all right. So great question. So, well, 2 things to answer both questions. If I was just in this for financial like gain, I wouldn't be working with competitors because I could be making 4 times the amount working with like preventative medicine, functional health, and like fertility stuff. I can. Part of you, like if you want to be a top coach, you need to want to do this too, like for the passion out of it, because to take someone from up where they're competing to be one of the best in the world, it's time consuming. Because again, like monitoring their body, that's, it requires a lot of time. Like prepping someone for the Olympia probably takes up as much time as like 12 to 15 regular people, because you're monitoring so many variables. Then going into the show, they're sending multiple check-ins. So once I decided to stop like competing, because there was a point where I knew like, look, I could probably at my best, if I really, really pushed the envelope, I had guys that I'd beaten that had made it to the Olympia in 212 that I could make it there. But I said, realistically, I'm not going to be contending to be Mr. Olympia, especially without like it potentially negatively impacting my health. I knew that I can give back much more. I was a much better coach than I was like an athlete. And after I did, my first show I did like a natural show. And then once I started competing in the NPC, I didn't know anything about drugs at 22 years old. So I hired a coach. And I did have in my earlier career an opportunity to work with some of the best coaches to learn things about what they did and pick apart certain things like, oh, this was good that they did. But I realized right away, I'm like, man, and because back then I would have never dreamed that I would have been doing this for a living. I wouldn't have ever thought that. But I realized quickly, I'm like, man, there is not too many people in this space that have any sort of like accredited education, but understand like systemically and on a cellular level, like what is going on in the body. And like when we see a lot of these like deaths too, I tell people this, it's from what you were doing 2 to 10 years prior to. And when I coach someone, I do look at that, because when you are in prep, you're not thinking like the same Jay that's sitting in the seat right now. If I asked you a serious question right now, would you give up one of your Olympia titles for 10 years of your life? Would you do it?
Now, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what about back then?
I mean,
you got 4 of them.
No,
I know.
you wouldn't have. But reverse that. If somebody had said, you're going to lose 10 years, but you're going to get 5 in the moment, you would have said, give me 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I didn't.
Mindset's different now.
Yeah. You know, I still have this whole thing, like life expectancy 73 or 5 or whatever it is.
In the United States.
My dad was 92 when he passed, you know.
Yeah.
My grandparents all were in their 90s. So genetic makeup, I mean, we talk about my brothers are in their mid 60s and they're in phenomenal shape, you know.
Yeah.
They look young, you know. They don't have gray hair, my brothers. It's crazy.
Those are things that I look at right away in the initial consultation. You know, I had someone and I told them, like, you have a hereditary issue for this. And then I did one on their father. This is a couple of years ago. And I told him, I said, look, if you do not address these issues with your kidneys and your blood pressure, there's going to be serious repercussions. This person died 3 weeks ago. And I had this conversation 2 years ago, 51 years old, passed away. I just did a consultation with them. I didn't work with them, but I tried stressing to them, like, look, and they kind of just swept it under the rug. And that's kind of a problem nowadays, that most of these people that you see that have these health issues, people
they don't want to address it, bro.
No.
I mean, I understand it.
Yeah. Oh no. Like I know, I get it.
I get it. You know, I mean,
but me as the coach, I try to like be that other side of them. I try to think like, if you were in prep, I try to think of the J 10 years from now. You're saying that right now, but you might not feel that way later on, you know? And I try to look at that for them, because when we're in prep, I mean, this is true even from like an actual, like on a cellular level, we have different spurts of like spiking dopamine, things like that.
You think different, yeah.
You're not thinking with a full deck heart.
Yeah, of course not.
You see people when they're in prep, they start sporadically buying things.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and it's true. You're not.
I bought a new car every time I did a prep, you know.
Yeah, I know people.
But you know what the difference is? You had the money to.
Yeah.
People buy shit they can't afford.
Yeah. I have people that I've been coaching before that I had to sit them down and be like, I'm freezing your coaching. You're living in your car right now because you got evicted 2 months ago. But I'm so honored that you respect my time, that you're not even paying your own bills, but you need to prioritize your life, man, and get these things in order. And ultimately I would tell them, like, you're going to be a better bodybuilder when you don't have all these other like stressors. You need to prioritize your life. You know, for you, it was different. Like, you were hot right out of the gate. So you knew, like, once you turn pro, this is what I'm doing for a living. There's no question about it.
Do you think if you won a Olympia title in the Open, how much would it mean to you?
I mean, it mean everything. I mean, when you take a step back and look at that, you're the best.
Is that the pinnacle though? Still, you look at that and like
you're the best in the world. There's not too many people. Again, the way that I would be coaching you, opposed to Joe Schmo from Idaho, that, everyone has certain limits to their potential. His potential might be to, win, the Potato Classic overall, where you have the potential to be the best in the world and make a legacy for yourself. It's a little different. Like in bodybuilding, everything we're doing ultimately with every decision is we're taking calculated risks. So you need to be able to decipher the risk to reward.
Yeah, I was Chris Aceto's first guy, right? So, I mean, I'm sure it means a lot because he's won a lot since then, right? And,
Absolutely.
It's pretty crazy that, full circle.
No, definitely. And, I tell people with the coaching, what I've learned over like the years with the experience, because you could understand everything with the body, which there's a big part of the coaching that falls into that, definitely understanding, just the way the human body works. But a thing that you cannot be taught is to be able to look at a physique. For an example, I know people have been coaching for 5 or more years that would have a hard time telling the difference between a physique that is flat and holding water, because the look actually resembles itself a little bit, where, like somebody could be really flat and you're like, man, like, why aren't the lines there? Are they holding water? Like, and you see coaches that don't know what the hell they're doing. Take a diuretic. That makes them worse, where they just need to fill out their glycogen stores. And when the muscle's pressing against the skin, then the lines get deeper. That takes time to learn. And the fastest way to like learn that is by like gathering data. That's why I'm big on the day after a show, send me a check-in. Like, I can't wait. Like for me, I'm like on Christmas morning, like, I can't wait to see this. Cause then in my head, I know I'm like, oh, all right, they were completely nailed. Like I shouldn't have given them more food or whatever. Like, that gives me the info that I need.
I asked him how many shows it would take
to learn
a body,
Oh yeah. No, I didn't even get a chance to answer that. So the first show always with someone, that's why I always say, like, go for the safe approach that's going to hit them at 96%. If you try to swing for the home run, you might be dropping down to 80%. Where if you come in at 97%, you could still win shows at 97%. After like the second show, you should have a good grasp of that person's body. But the way that I do things, like a regular coach, it might take them 4 shows. But if you're gathering data like the day after the show, looking at them, I typically, especially someone's first prep, I like to have them ready at least 2 or 3 weeks out and do like a mock load with them. Like, let's blast them for 2 days with 1,000 grams of carbs. Let's spill them over and see where that threshold is.
Yeah. The thing is, though, if they put on 5 pounds of muscle, it can wreak havoc in what you did prior.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, explain that.
Well, I mean, I told you when I was eating, I won the nationals at 248, 254. Okay. So to the Olympia. So I was 23. By 37, I was 254.
And you won the Arnold's in the 270s.
Yeah. So I was all over the place in weights. And I told you the food went from X to crazy amounts, hard to balance.
Yeah.
For a coach, someone to coach me saying, well, now you used to eat this and now you're eating this and the carbs have changed. Like what I ate, if I went from eating oatmeal in the beginning to cream of rice and then grits to bagels or whatever else and pasta thrown in like the kitchen sink because I'm just trying to catch the metabolism.
Yeah. Would you say that your food was consistently throughout your career going
Yes.
up? Consistently?
Yeah.
Where it never got adjusted, where there was one prep where you had to like dig deeper or do anything different?
No, I was always just like, I was always kind of the same protocol.
Yeah.
You know, but then the cardio changed. And like I told you, like anti-estrogens change sometimes.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's where it makes a huge difference. Like I was a water guy. I had issues with water balance. And I would have to super dehydrate to get the best look. Anytime I was my best, I was super dehydrated.
Yeah.
And it was very taxing on my mind. And like I was hot, you know, you get super hot when you're dehydrated, right? You have to lay on the floor. I'd be backstage at the Olympia laying on the concrete because it's like
you're hot,
just trying to cool my body.
All the carbs that you're eating too. Did you use letrozole?
No, never used it.
Never used Letro.
I don't think it existed then.
It just probably wasn't that popular. So like, of course, like this is the thing. You obviously like the last couple of weeks to get like bone dry for most people, you want to have lower levels of estrogen, definitely. But the problem is that in modern day bodybuilding, I would say this is one of the main things that has changed a lot. Guys are nuking their estrogen at 12 or 10 weeks out. And that's what actually causes a lot more of the serious long-term health issues than the actual steroids do, because estradiol is cardiovascular protective. It's super, super important.
I never used it other than the last couple of shows, and I never took anything in the off season anti-ease.
I'm telling you that
I don't use it now. A lot of TRT protocols, they say 1 a week or whatever it is.
Sometimes you don't even need them. I would say out of on a hormone replacement therapy perspective, maybe 1 out of 10 people have a conversion issue where the aromatase is really, really high that they need it, which you can tell the people somebody that you're coaching at that level. I can tell Regan runs a little bit higher estradiol, where
it's a lot of water.
Yeah. So he is someone that we need to take that into account. But this is data that we've gotten from, gathering all of his blood work, where there's some people that don't. I didn't really need much anti-estrogen. The last 3 weeks, I would do a half of an Arimidex every other day the last 3 weeks, and I was good with that.
I've noticed a lot of TRT clinics now, when someone signs up, they'll automatically say, you got to do this. And even in the beginning, when I would look at a different clinic to use, and I would just say, but how do you know I need these things? Yeah. No, it's our protocol. You have to do it. And I said, well, why are you going to give me a drug unless I need it? Because I just want to sell it to you.
Because it's what I call cookie cutter medicine. And now what's happening with the telemedicine space, this is why there was a company that I almost went with, but as soon as I sat down with their law firm and they told me this, I'm like, no way. AI is something that's growing. They have HIPAA compliant AI softwares now that will write the protocol. And I got into an argument with this doctor. I'm like, listen, this doctor was not an endocrinologist though. I think he was in some other form of medicine. I said, listen, optimizing someone's hormones, if you think that it's a matter of 200 milligrams of cypionate and take, a half of aromasin every other day. I said, how everyone metabolizes these drugs, I said, especially women, is so totally different. You have no idea. If I was to pull up a bar chart of the 500 patients that are on hormone replacement therapy, I could have 500 people that are on 200 milligrams of testosterone a week. And I have some people where that'll bring them up to 1,500 nanograms per deciliter, and some where it barely gets them up to 5, and they actually need closer to 300 or 350 to get them in that optimal range. But that's why everyone's body is so different, where, the protocols need to be different. And that's why with your clinic, you guys do everything very individualized.
I was just going to say, what clinic doesn't do that?
What?
TRT Kingdom. Click the link below.
No, but it's true. And I remember before we started this, that's what you were saying. The biggest thing for you said, was the quality of the service, because you saw what was out there.
We did. Look, every clinic you could imagine reached out at some point. And when you start talking to them, so this isn't going to end well. It's
kind of funny. When I used to go for all my blood work, my doctor, I had a doctor, a physician, he's like, how do you know all this stuff? Because I was very up to speed with what to do and the body function at the time. And I'm like, man, it's just a lot of bro science, right? And learning and reading. And
I know doctors that are so interested in what we do, because this is the thing. When you talk to someone that's just getting into bodybuilding, they're referencing this study and that study. With what we do, you kind of have to throw that out the window. And I would say 5 years after I was coaching people at a high level, I realized that, because I was really into the medical literature. And when you're reading this, it's this is either a rodent study, or it's a study that's done on someone that just started lifting. They're not on performance enhancing drugs. So all of that, you literally have to just throw out a clean slate, and just from what of seeing the weight.
It's like when the general person asks me, how do I lose weight? And I'm like, well, it's about meal timing. It's about spacing your meals out and eating more fibrous carbohydrates and lower fat protein. Meanwhile, it's we're having refeed days and we're talking about eating pasta and like a bagel or whatever
the average person, the bodybuilder.
Yes. You try to spit out, okay, this is what you do. But in reality, like, it's just like I told you, you're 3 weeks from a show. You're just praying you can land it on the day. And sometimes it's days of eating 1,500 carbs or, adding some fats in there that you haven't for 10 weeks or 12 weeks of the diet. So it's just touch and go. Yeah. And that's what people need to realize is that's what makes a coach really good at what they do is that they can kind of maneuver based on the reading that they see and
not to fall too much into either, again, because you got to remember the thing that's fascinating about bodybuilding, we're in the one sport, there's no rules. If you get on stage and you were eating In-N-Out burger,
they don't ask
motor oil, if you somehow look good, the best guy wins. So I'm saying, though, you got to think about it, though.
Disclaimer, don't inject motor oil. Anyone listening to this.
Chances are that probably wouldn't go well, but if it's somehow you look good, like
you win.
Whoever looks best. So your strategy, think about this. Your strategy in this sport, to me, is superior to any other sport that's out there because we don't have these rules. So like from coaching standpoint, you need to remember that when you're coaching individuals, like, even though like, people think you need to be in a depletion phase at this point, if the guy is looking better as you're increasing his food, then do with what's yielding the best result, Even, there's people out there now that's going around with sight enhancement oil ripping. Like, look, it's a calculated risk. It's something that could be used very effectively, but
destroy you,
or it could destroy you. If you go on stage and they could see that you have tons of oil in your body, you're not going to win, obviously. But if you're able to use it in a way, again, being strategic, at a guy that tore his rotator cuff and his pec, you could see it on his physique. It's about your, physique, your aesthetics. So putting a little something like, whether it was Nolotol, whatever it is, to fill in those gaps, there's nothing then wrong with it. If it looks good, we're in a sport that there is no rules. If you have a problem with that, go compete in a federation that's drug tested.
It's muscle modeling.
Yeah.
The reality is, I'm not saying it's not a sport, but it's a muscle pageant.
It sometimes amazes me, Dom, like the conversations that come up after years and years of like, it's almost like you run out of things to talk about,
Yeah, sometimes, but
because it's like this whole SEO thing is like,
it's been around for like 40 years.
Yeah, I don't know what like people like are surprised by this, like
because they've had nothing else to talk about.
Yeah.
I saw the people arguing about this stuff. Like, who hasn't at some point? The vast majority have.
Yeah.
The vast majority. I'm not saying everybody did.
And from the IFBB standpoint, number one, because I've done a deep dive on this, to be able to test for it would be, you have to have, it's a certain type of, I can't remember it's a specific medical device that you'd have to have that we don't have access to, like universities only have it. So the way you like monitor it is it's even Steven. If you want to go ahead and do it and you get caught doing it and you have tons of oil and lumps on your body, then you're probably not going to do well.
Yeah.
But
you were in Brazil. Did they talk about it?
Someone did. We brought it up and they actually said it is very
common.
It is very common.
Okay.
One of the guys that we were down there with, I guess he's friends with like Good Vito. And he said there were a lot of people that were trying to get him to do it, and it sounded tempting, but he didn't.
I don't think he needs it.
No, no.
He's another myostatin.
Yeah. Absolutely. But
anything else?
That's it.
Yeah.
What else?
No, I just think anything else.
I mean, one of the other things to say too with like the coaching, because when you were prepping and you were winning your Olympia titles, did Chris have any other athletes with you competing?
He didn't want to take anyone on the Olympia. I got him to do Victor Martinez when Victor won the 03 Night of Champions. I convinced him to do it. I said, hey, there's this kid. He has a lot of potential. I think you should help him. They connected, and he worked with him to win that show. And then obviously he worked with him for a couple of shows, and then I think he went to another coach. But I mean, he worked no one that was competing with me at the time. I was his only guy.
Because again, like what I say about with like coaching, that a big part of it is, you know, there are a handful of good coaches, but some of them have 300, 400 like clients and athletes where I don't care how good you are. Like if you have that many people, you're just pumping out the same cookie cutter stuff where, you know, like a big part of it is being able to monitor that person's body like very closely. That's why I will set my client cap at a certain number. I won't go over that number. And I have 3 other really good coaches that work with me, work under me. But yeah, that's a major mistake that people make. I try to leave enough like room where I could give that attention to detail to them going into the show. Cause then you're just essentially throwing, you know, blindfolded darts, where I know that there's a couple of coaches that have going into the Olympia, like over 20 or 30 athletes competing at once. And
some bikini coaches are like that. 2
of them I spoke to, one of them's a 212 bodybuilder. He's like, man, you know, I was so flat, like working with this coach. I'm looking at the diet. I'm like, dude, did you know that the food that he had on there, you're supposed to be weighing it pre-cooked? Didn't even know that. Now, if this coach didn't have 40 people, he probably would have picked up on that. But when your mind is going 101 places, you know, it's a lot. Like I had 6 this last year, and that was a good amount. But I would say, you know, like I wouldn't want to have more than like 7 or 8 would be the most. That's a
You
lot.
said you would stay there and be closer by.
Well, I learned a lot. Like now, like I had thought this is great. Like, you know, I'm going to be at my home. And at first everyone's like, oh, I'll come and I'll stay with you. And not, you know, I'm totally cool with that. But I'm thinking, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to fit everyone here. And then if I have one person, that's not fair to the other person.
They get more attention.
So like, I got to keep this even Steven. I'm like, okay, guys, like this is where I live. You're going to get an Airbnb within a half a mile radius, and then we'll set times. But it was still a lot with trying to coordinate with their schedules. This person has to go to this meet and greet. They have to go to this other event. So what I think is best is those last 3 days, getting a room there and have everyone stay on one floor, and that's going to be best.
You know, it's even with you who running the expo people, and think about like I remember even like when you were working Olympia a couple years ago, you stayed on the strip
always.
But it's like us at the Arnold. Like, imagine if I have a lot of obligations there. Imagine if I had to, like, Airbnb and drive-in park.
Drive-in park.
You remember
then
when I used to stay at my house? It was kind of a pain.
It was a total pain.
Yeah.
When you did the Olympia in 2007, you stayed at your house.
Yeah, I remember.
You had a room, you gave it away.
Yeah.
And how did you like that? You didn't like it?
Well, I mean, I liked it because I was like, I looked at myself. I could pose in where I looked at myself the whole prep. And Chris would come stay with me or whoever for the time he did. But like even 2007, I don't think he came that year, but
no, he didn't.
It was my second Olympia. But like even going like we could talk about athlete meeting, meet the Olympians, press conference, show,
expo.
Yeah. Expo.
Prejudging.
Yes.
You're back and forth 10 times.
Back and forth. And I'm 20 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was 2014. I think it was 2013 though. I didn't stay and I drove back and forth. And I remember I burned an entire tank of gas in the vehicle. And it's not like it's only 10 miles away.
Yeah.
But I had to go back, forth so many times. Yeah. And you get to a point where you're like, shit, I just want to go back to my house. But I'm like, what am I going to do? Drive home for an hour and a half and then come back? So it's just, you want to get a hotel and then you deal. It's just so much easier.
Yeah. No, for sure. So this year, that's what we will definitely be doing is, you know, like when I go to some, if I have like a bunch of athletes competing, I'll call like the hotel and I'll rent a whole floor.
Yes.
Have everyone like on that floor, and then they're all right there, and it just goes a lot smoother.
And they'll work with you too.
Yeah.
Usually. Like I said, Aceto used to always have the same floor, all his athletes in the same hotel.
Well, so obviously people can get a hold of you.
Yeah.
Where's the best place? They
could reach out either on my Instagram. I also have a business Instagram, Team Best Built, but on my Instagram, the link is on there. Dom SuperSliced. And then they could see like my website on there. And then it's got our contact information. They could reach out, schedule like a consultation. There's a bunch of like different services, whether it's like a blood work review, GI map, any of those things.
I'll link it.
I was going to say, yeah, because it's not just like we're talking about coaching, but you're doing so much. Just
yeah. There's a
for
lot of
other
different
functions.
services.
Put your cell phone number.
fertility, or
Oh, no.
did you mention fertility or something?
Yeah, I do a lot of that stuff too,
Protocol.
especially
We
with
talked with Palumbo on it a little bit about his protocols and all that. When he
his is pretty like straightforward, and they are the most essentials that he's naming on there for sure. But again, it really all depends. So like,
you can go deeper into it, is what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, bodybuilders sometimes end up getting their partner pregnant when they're in prep because their motility is so good. Their sperm count might go down, but all you need is one healthy swimmer. So
There's a lot of bodybuilders that happens too. So
it does, and it's usually because when you're in prep,
I don't gotta worry about it.
That's why I say like your blood work. Sometimes when you're closer to a show, you'd be surprised and think it's bad. It's the time that would be more in the off season, but yeah, the fertility stuff, we do pretty much everything. And I have, even for people that have insurance that need to have any sort of test done, the old doctor I used to work with in New York City, like I can go through like his internal medical practice. So, we could pretty much do most things. And then if there's anything that I tell people that's kind of outside of my spectrum, because this is a thing that I'm big on too. I will never take something on if I don't think that I'm either an expert in that space or can help them. But I tell them, I said, look, I have people that I'm in network with. Like if someone has like a bad mold toxicity case or a parasite or something like that, that I'm not going to sit there and turn you into a guinea pig. I'm going to give you to someone that I know is going to be able to help you.
good, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on. We've been talking about it for
Oh,
a minute,
it's an honor. Like this is like a big bucket list thing of mine. I've been such a fan of yours, like growing up. All me and my friends were watching you throughout your whole career. You are like in my opinion, like a testament of the way a professional athlete should conduct themselves, both on the stage, but also like off the stage. So I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming on, man.
Definitely.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
2 hours and 7.